Loktargar friends, hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha here, and it's time for another Orc Mode workout. And yes, my deload is over. As you guys noticed, you didn't see 2 workouts in a row come up, and that's because it was deload half week, which I do about every 4th or 5th week or so. And this time it was the 5th week apart. So you guys didn't see that. Now, I picked up, I think, 3 pounds of water weight over this weekend. And that may or may not be visible with my shirt off doing the deadlifts and other stuff later. I guess we'll see. You guys can determine that for yourselves. Minor situation happened this weekend where I ate breakfast, had 50 grams of protein, and then I had a gap with some stuff in my schedule where I couldn't get any food for 16 hours. So I went 16 hours without eating, and then I went off my diet just to get enough calories for the day. Ate foods I wouldn't normally eat. First time I've had actually carbs in a couple of months. And I think I picked up something like 3 pounds of scale weight according to the scale this morning from it. So it is what it is. I'm not that worried about it. It'll come back off, especially with the training. So let's get over to what I'm doing today. So yeah, for those curious, it did push me a hair above 220. I think it bumped me up to 221, and I'll be back down to 218 next week, hopefully 217 maybe. We'll see. But chains. I love training with chains. Chains are so much fun. Look, guys, we could argue about the merits of accommodating resistance. We could argue about the fact that accommodating resistance used incorrectly might even make you slightly weaker if you're not careful. It's fun, though. Training with chains, it's fun. It's orky, right? I mean, let's think about orc mode training. Big lifts with chains. I don't know. That's about as orc mode as it gets. But today was week 1 of the chain wave. So we're going to be doing chains for the box squat. We're going to be doing chains for the sumo deadlift, for speed pulls, and then for speed benching for the next 3 weeks. And then we'll rotate back to bands for 3 weeks on DE day. And eventually for tricep specialization, I might go over to something like closed grip presses with chains or floor presses with chains when I get sick of the JM press. We'll mess with that later. I feel like I'm getting good mileage out of that JM press right now. So as long as it's working, I don't want to take it out of the rotation. As much as training with chains can be fun, and I'd be like, oh man, I could just do an accessory with them. I need to leave the JM press in. But we need to talk about squatting and deadlifting today. So let's get back over to that. 12 doubles with the chains. And this is my lightest weight. For those curious, it's 275 on the bar with 65 pounds of chains for speed work. And we'll bump it 20 pounds each week, right? So we'll go up to 295, and then we'll go to 315 for the 3rd wave and replicate this. And the deadlifts, I'm pretty much just going to leave static because I feel like it's just the speed pull itself, and it's grip training, and it's a speed training. And if we want to add overload, that's what the heavy days are for, right? Because max effort day, I try to work at 90% for some singles on a normal pull with no accommodating resistance, right? So we're just coming to do at least 3 heavy singles with 90% on the sumo. If we want to manipulate intensity, I think for the deadlift, that's where we want to do it. Because most of the volume in the training right now is going to come from the squatting and the benching. And the deadlifts are still in there. We're still pulling twice a week, but it is a little less volume. And so it's a little less critical that we program it good. It's just about motor pattern. It's about getting the benefits from it, and we're doing a lot of accessory movements to help with that. And that's the beauty of doing all these box squats and stuff, is that they carry over to the sumo deadlift so well. Same thing, we're getting the rows. I do my glute ham raises and all of that, so it all carries over. So my deadlift is going to go up with all of this no matter what, as long as my grip stays on point and I continue to train it at all. So for now, I think for the deadlifting speed pulls, I'm just going to use static weight on those. Maybe every couple months we'll bump it up slightly, but it's within the percentage range I need to be in for speed pulls anyways. And it's just that difference of rotating the accommodating resistance in, and with doing the box squats with progression beforehand does create a little more fatigue by the time you get to the deadlift each time. So it all balances out. And as long as I can feel like I'm working sub-maximally and increase those max effort days over time, that's what we're looking for, right? That's what we're looking for. I mean, we eventually want to get to where we are pulling 550 on all the max effort days for at least 3 singles without feeling like I'm pulling a max. Right? That's kind of the goal there. So The box squats, though, these are fun. They felt good. They all felt light, but I'm still getting that thoracic work. So it's like one of the things I'm doing for now, just because I'm getting so much training volume, I'm not doing my good mornings for a few workouts, because getting all the volume in and getting the work capacity up on these other lifts that I want to do isn't leaving me a lot of, feel like, recovery to do the good mornings. And all this accommodating resistance is doing what I wanted the good mornings to do for me anyways. So I think for me, just so that I can build up to where I can do them again, keep working the work capacity, I'm going to continue to do a little bit of light neck training just at the angle that I need for the good mornings, so that when I go back to the good mornings, my neck will be nice and strong, so that I can do them effectively with the safety box squat, that will come in and hammer that area again. But I feel like for now, I don't really need them because I'm doing so much other stuff. And I'm trying to build work capacity on enough other accessory movements that working them in is just not viable. But all this accommodating resistance is working my T-spine. Because a lot of these at the overload, where I run into problems with the squat is the top half of the squat. Like people are like, oh, that's a good, no, it's not a good morning. It's thoracic rounding and it's only near the top. It's past the halfway point. So where I'm doing the lifts, particularly on the max effort days, my lockout work at the top is heavier than my normal back squats are, even coming off the box with the accommodating resistance. So I'm still training heavier up there at the top. And it's forcing that T-spine to work. And I notice it on my sumo pulls with the accommodating resistance, and I notice it on all my box squatting with accommodating resistance. So that work is still there, especially since I'm using the safety squat for some of the max effort work with chains and bands. Again, I'm feeling that area being worked more. So we are giving some preferential treatment to that with the lifts I'm selecting. So the main thing is that getting my T-spine used to a load a little bit heavier than my back squat max would be is really what we need to do. And so we're still getting the training effect that we need. And then we're going to make sure that my quads do not become a weakness either, because some people will argue, well, I think your quads are the weakness, not just your T-spine. Okay, well, fine. I'm going to be doing extra quad hypertrophy work anyways, which is what the belt squats are for. But I will say, after having a deload and doing no hook grip and no deadlifting for a week now, I felt this on this very first set. I felt my whole T-spine. I felt my thumbs. I felt my hamstring. Thinking my left hamstring was just like, what did you just do to me? All right? What did you just do to me? Because this isn't even that much weight. I mean, for speed pulls, it's 375 and then 65 pound of chain. So we're only looking at 440 on the lockout for a few doubles, you know. But, you know, I'm definitely feeling it. Actually, you see, I'm not quite getting all the chain off the ground. So it might only be even 430. But for speed work, that's decent enough. I'm just trying to maximize that explosiveness and get that lockout. But it is still fantastic hook grip work. Fantastic hook grip work. And it's different. It's like my hook grip got its own brutal working with the bands. And it had its own fatigue that I started getting used to, right? And then the chains feel like it pulls on my thumbs in a totally different way at the top. And so it's just this continual adjusting for my thumbs to what I'm doing. And it's so interesting because all this dynamic effort work, even with the lighter weight, because of the volume of it and the weird pulling at the top, the way the chains pull a certain way, the bands pull a different way, it feels like my hook grip is getting so much work that when I get over to actually doing heavy singles, the hook grip's just like, this is fine, this is normal, this is easy. So hopefully that trend keeps up and we get to that goal of pulling 600 with a hook grip, right? Get to 600 with a hook grip. In my 40s, I'll take that. I'll take it. Not the best in the world, but I don't think anyone's going to call that weak. Get up to where with just a straight up hook grip, pull 600. Yeah. And then we'll take it from there. People say, well, what do you do after that? Well, then we reach for the next goal. But yeah, this felt really good today. You know, it's always interesting how these different variations on the speed work, they feel different. You know, it just hits things different. And that's why we do this stuff in the waves. You rotate through, because as soon as you really adapt to it, you're like, oh, I've got this band work down. Third week, this is a breeze. Even though I increase weight, it's easy. I'm in the groove. It's explosive. And then you hit yourself with the other thing. You go from the bands to the chains, and then it's a whole nother beast. And then once you master it, you go back and forth. And again, it's always kind of keeping you a little bit in an adaptation phase is a way to look at it, because you're having to adjust to it. But again, you do it in the wave so that you actually have the 3 weeks to master it. make some gains from it, and then we adjust to the other version. But we're still doing the same lifts. It's still a box squat. It's still a sumo pull. There's still accommodating resistance. It's just the form of accommodation changes. And it creates a different curve that you're pulling and squatting against or pressing against with the bench. And it's fun. It always keeps it fresh and interesting. But I like training with chains. Like, we can argue about it. Some people feel like the bands in certain ways give a superior training response in some ways. Arguably harder to recover from. But in terms of just fun, like, training with chains is fun. It just is. It's just something primal about it, and it's enjoyable, and it's different. It's different. I like it. I've always liked chains. Then we did Pendlay rows. 5x10. 5x10. And I'm going to have a video coming out soon explaining why I'm using the belt more on certain lists. And it just has to do with, again, not being dogmatic about things. And again, we come back to that argument. Are you worried about your core? No, because I do core work every day. I train my abs and my spinal erectors every day. So, no, I'm not worried about them at all. So even if our concern is the belt might leave those weak, I do at least 20 sets for each one every week. I do at least 20 sets of hyperextensions and at least 20 sets of glute ham raise sit-ups, in addition to all this standing work. So I think my core is fine. It's not like I plan on training it less. So it's all good. I'm not that worried about it. No need to. But yeah, this is what I'm doing for now. As people remember now, we switched to doing the rows and any back work on my squat and deadlift day because this is my biggest hypertrophy and volume day. And because while these lifts are important and I want to get them up, I want to get my squat back over 500. I want to get my deadlift back over 600. They're important. My bench is my weak link. So I want my bench days to be completely dedicated to my bench. And so this lets me go ahead and do all my back work on my deadlift day. All my real grip training, other than, again, pinch blocks, if I want to add some more of that in, immediately after deadlifting. So it's like I always deadlift and then I do rows after. And this adds up. You get an accumulation of fatigue as far as your grip training and stuff goes. And then all the back work. And it's like usually by the last set of this, my back is just shot because I've usually done squats, I've done deadlifts. And then this 5x10 rows, even with this light weight, it's like my back is finished. It's all it has. It's all it has left. And I get all that grip work done all in one day so that I can focus entirely on bench and bench accessories. All right, you can focus on that on the other days. But this last set of rows, I'm right at that weight to where the fifth set is usually tough. All right, I'm right at that threshold with the weight where I've got the weight picked to where the first couple sets are actually a breeze. But usually this fifth set, I'm sometimes having to take breathers between the last couple reps because my back is starting to cramp up, my lats are cramping up. Sometimes my forearms and biceps are starting to feel it. Although I've noticed now my biceps, since I've started doing the strict curls, I'm feeling the rows less in my biceps. And it's because my biceps are becoming less of a weak link, which is fine. That's what we want. And I'm trimming a little bit of this out of me trying to get into position and back out of it on these because these workouts are getting longer and longer. I think this one was close to 17 minutes. And they're going to start passing 20 minutes as I continue to add accessory volume. And this is, God, no warm-ups even thrown in. And I only did 3 sets of these today. But I increased weight. So, we increased the weight another 25 pounds. I think, 25 pounds on this today. And did 3 sets of 10. 3 sets of 10. And I want to get this up to 5 sets of 10, right? 5 sets of 10 twice a week with this weight. And then we'll increase the weight again from there once we get to that threshold. But yeah, this is my additional quad hypertrophy, and this is also training me to squat wider, right? We're getting very, very similar, a little narrower than my sumo stance, but we're training our quads into a similar path for my box squat and a similar path for my sumo deadlift. And I have certain parts of my thigh that I can feel work differently here that I need to build up. And so as I build the mobility and the strength and the size in certain parts of my thigh to get this wider stance squat, and do all my box squats with this wider stance, I will eventually take my Olympic style squat out wider like this because I feel like I'll be able to move more weight, more total weight on a back squat. Because for those who are curious, I'm still doing a shoulder width stance. On the ones you see me do for the back off singles, at 90% or so after my max effort work. Those normal Olympic squats, I'm still doing them with a narrower stance in this. So for me, this is a wider stance. And I do feel like this needs to be worked on. And it lets me do that. It lets me work this wider stance, work those muscles, hypertrophy those muscles with some extra training volume in a way with zero axial loading. And it's kind of hard because I get occasionally subscribers who don't understand that, who are like, well, you could do this or that. It's like, that's not going to give me the effect I want. In fact, that's going to be inferior for my quads, and it's still going to have axial loading. People are like, you could do a front squat, you could do a Zercher squat. No, that completely defeats the purpose. If I just wanted more axial loading exercises, I would just do more back squatting. It would be superior to those for my goals, right? But in this case, this lets me go ahead and give just direct quad work, hip work, all that stuff in a movement pattern that will train my wider stance squat. But I'm doing so with zero axial loading. Literally, the reason a lot of people want to do a leg press is replicated by this superior. This is way superior to a leg press for a strength athlete. But it's the same concept. In fact, it gives you less negative effect on your spine than even a leg press does. So it lets me completely unload my spine and still train a squat. So I can do a lot of training volume with this to hypertrophy my lower body. And that's the idea. But I'm hypertrophying it in a manner that will give the best carryover to my squatting. Right? And that's the whole point. So eventually build up to like 10 sets of this every week over my 2 workouts. So I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you guys next time.